Okay, welcome everyone to another Validator community call. Thanks for joining as always. Appreciate seeing everyone's faces and joining in with the community. Yeah, so a couple things on the agenda today to talk about. First of all, we've got some updates, not too many updates this week actually. The main things to be aware of are that there's kind of a little bit of confusion about versioning in mainnet versus testnet. So the approved mainnet version right now is 1.10.28 for mainnet beta. The approved mainnet version, or sorry, the approved testnet version right now is 1.10.29. You might have to specify the specific version that you want when you're installing the update. So just be aware of that. When there's the same version on both testnet and mainnet, there can be some issues when you just try to install the default version, the recommended version. We're working towards getting 1.11 out completely on testnet. Still not there yet, but thank you to the 15% that have participated and tried out 1.11 on testnet. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for general validator updates. Any questions on that? The chat. No. Okay. Moving on. So like always, there's a feedback link in the agenda. If you have anything you want to talk to me about one-on-one, don't hesitate to use that link. It's great to meet people one-on-one, and I love to help people with whatever problem they have. So feel free to reach out to me that way. Next thing that I've already mentioned in the delegation program channel is that we will be instating a new yeah, there's a mention about cursed software versions. I hope 1.11 is not cursed. Yeah, but anyway, in the metrics or in the delegation channel, we are going to require a new metrics reporting requirement in order to be staked by the foundation. If you are approved for mainnet, you must report metrics in both your mainnet node and your testnet node. If you are still in the pending status, so you just have a testnet node, you must report metrics for your testnet node. You have to show metrics being reported in 8 out of the last 10 epochs in order to get baseline stake. So this is not a bonus stake requirement. This is just for baseline stake alone. If you do not report metrics in 8 out of the last 10 epochs, you will not be getting any stake from the foundation until you fix the issue. I've put a list in that delegation channel of all the people who are currently non-compliant in both mainnet and testnet. So if you see your validator identity there, let me know if you think it's an error. We could try to figure it out. I've already had a couple people reach out, so the link there for one-on-one feedback would be a good way to get in touch with me, or you can DM me in Discord as well. Yep, and there's some info there from Serge about how to get that all set up. Any other questions about that requirement? It will be taking place in approximately 9 epochs. Okay, cool. Let's move on then to a new proposal from the foundation. So as some of you may already know, at epoch boundaries, there can be some performance issues with the cluster. There's some bookkeeping and things that the cluster has to do every time a new epoch starts. One of those things that you're all probably very aware of is that we need to calculate rewards for validators at the beginning of each epoch. That has proven to be a bit of a performance problem with the current amount of stake accounts that exist and the worry about it growing in the future. So in order to help mitigate that, Foundation is proposing that we have a minimum stake amount of 1 SOL. I see some of you have already talked about this briefly in MB Validators, so maybe it's not a surprise to a lot of you. Foundation is proposing it, yeah. So that's the general idea. There will be a 1 SOL minimum for any delegation going forward. All previous delegators that have any delegation less than 1 SOL will continue to be grandfathered in. So this won't affect anyone that's already staked to your validator. It would only affect new stakers going forward. Any questions on that? Okay, so one thing you should know about this is that we are going to do this in the form of a community vote. If you want to see more information on that, it is in the docs. Let me grab the link real quick. The feature proposal program. Discord. Oops. All right, so you can read more info on the process here. It will be a feature proposal using an SPL token. All the validators will have an opportunity to vote on this new feature based on their stake weight. So please be aware, please participate. We'll let you know more as it comes up. But if there's any feedback or thoughts or questions, please let me know. All right, I'm seeing one sol is reasonable and some general debugging from Zentetsu about environment variables.
I think critically it's reasonable at current prices, but I think the concern expressed is if Sol goes up, let's say 500, maybe, heaven forbid 1,000 at some point, that one Sol limit might start limiting like who can stake. Maybe that's not a problem, but it is something to consider, and I think that's a pretty good point.
Yeah, that's fair. I should also mention there's an ongoing effort to mitigate the problem in other ways. So potentially in the future, if there's other mitigations that make this epoch boundary a little bit more performant, maybe this won't be as necessary. But right now, this is the best solution we have. And of course, it's up to vote.
The other option here is, if a minimum stake balance is prohibitive for an individual user, they can always deposit into stake pools.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's a different approach. That comes with its unique considerations, but it is certainly a way that someone who holds less than one sol could still kind of participate in security and consensus and earn those rewards.
All right. That's all the topics we've got. Surprised that there's not too many questions. Any other thoughts or questions people want to bring up? Yeah, Code Monkey, go ahead.
Sorry, there's been a little chat here. I want to make sure that we're talking about the same stuff. I had made a proposal some weeks ago about a different way to count vote credits, and I had gathered data and made that presentation. And after that, I found out from Solana Labs that they were going to want a governance sort of like vote to enable any change like that. And then I kind of felt like, well, I just didn't want to take a lot of time at that moment to figure out exactly how that would work. So it kind of got put on the back burner. But it's something that I do think is still very valuable. And I have been gathering data every epoch to see, because, the network performance has changed a lot, as I'm sure you've all noticed in the past couple of weeks. It's gotten a lot better. And one thing that's happened is the average vote latency has gone way down. It used to be like 2.5 or something like that. And now it's like 1.5, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's almost a 50% reduction in how quickly people are voting or having their votes get counted. So anyway, that can affect the proposal. So I'm continuing to monitor that. And in the background, I'll be making the pull request and then trying to work with Solana Labs to see what it would take to get a governance vote for it. And then I'll probably represent, the documentation with updated data. So that's kind of where that is. I hope if that's what people are asking about, that's the state of it.
Any questions on that? That sounds all good to me.
I think that's great. I haven't looked at the kind of the details of your specific proposal, but if I guess I just I'm encouraged to see you and other kind of active community members putting forth proposals or potential proposals like this. I saw Michael made a comment in the chat regarding like a more formal kind of governance process. this is something that actually I'm focusing a lot of my time on over the coming months, as we are starting to see a much greater kind of diversification of people that are actively contributing to the core code and potential proposals or changes to the protocol, to have like a bit more of a structured process for people to either submit a proposal for a feature change or follow along with the status of upcoming feature changes, from Solana Labs or other, kind of core developers or core development teams. So there is, I think it's probably in the link that Tim sent about the feature proposal. We do have some documentation on how any community contributor can basically create and submit a feature proposal, which can then be used to trigger an on-chain governance vote. So yeah, I just kind of want to let you know, like, this is definitely something that we're working on, and something I really want to put a little more formal structure in the coming months.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just point out, like, the trend is continuing. I am seeing more and more developers that have found ways to increase their, credit earnings through what is pretty obviously some amount of lagging, where you just kind of like delay your decision on what fork to choose, to see, to make better choices. And there's one validator now that's making fantastic fork selection choices. They're getting almost every fork right, but it's at the cost of some number of slots of, of average delay. That means, and if everyone did that, it would just mean that all transactions would take that much longer to verify. It would take like another second or so per transaction. And that's not what we want with Solana. We want Solana to be fast. That's what its selling point is. And so we need to encourage validators to be fast. And one way to do that is just to make sure that the rewards are aligned with that. And it's not about trying to be advantageous to any particular validator. I mean, if you look at what the data really shows, all it really does is bump those laggers down and everyone else kind of shifts up, and maybe a little bit of shuffling on the periphery. But anyway, so I won't talk about it more, but I will make a GitHub issue and make sure that it's that I continue to collect data and present it in there.
I would like to add my 2 cents though. Like right now, I would agree, like it's not a huge pressing, like immediate problem. The vote lagging, like not enough people are doing it. But I would imagine if there was a binary go around and somebody had made it openly available, if enough, like it could pretty quickly become an issue. So I think us waiting until it's an issue is definitely not the right way to go. So if there's anything I can do or we can do to help Zan or really help the foundation sort of take this up, I certainly would like to be involved.
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo what Dan said, that I love to see sort of the community involvement and people pushing this forward. So anything I can do to help facilitate and talk with engineers and get it, to a place that makes sense to put it to a vote, I think that'd be great. Code Monkey, I see your hand is up. I don't know if the question was asked or answered yet. Do you have something to say?
Yeah. So Zentetsu, thanks for that. I definitely think that it's going to be definitely advantageous to at least work on that before a binary like starts to get spread, like Ben had mentioned, which I think is bound to happen eventually. But onto a different topic. I am starting to see a few companies starting to form, offering validator services for NFT communities. And I think I'm a bit concerned on my end from a ASN and data center saturation standpoint of these communities coming together and forming validators for these communities in the same data center, on the same ASN, on the same operators. And then I mean, like, I don't know what the solution is, but I kind of want to just raise this as an issue of what happens if they start the company starts to become more and more prevalent, like an AWS type situation, and then we have supermajority potentially becoming an issue under one operator. What can like Solana Labs do to kind of potentially look into some sort of ASN saturation or GeoIP type solution for this, and how can we maintain a very diverse and decentralized environment?
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest pressure point here we have are, the stakers, the delegators themselves here. For those people who, or for those validators that are participating in the foundation's delegation program, we actually already have a basically an ASN and data center concentration limit, right? If there, I believe it's currently set to 10%. So if you join the program and you move your node into a data center that already has 10% Solana stake located there, you won't receive any delegation from the foundation. So like this has been on our mind. It's something we've already taken action about. I think like there's no reason that we couldn't, like this data is public actually in validators.app. Kind of highlights certain areas of data center concentration. And I'd love to see like if this is becoming a community issue, and there's stake accumulating that's held by independent or other holders, right, that aren't Solana Foundation. We have seen in the past kind of like social pressure actually working pretty well on some mid-sized validators if there's performance issues or people want to reconsider where they're located. I think a lot of this is sort of comes to like educating folks about what makes a good staking decision. And I think kind of the growth of a competitive market of stake pools and their various staking criteria is actually ultimately long-term going to move kind of in the move everyone in the right direction there, right? People can easily move from stake pool A to stake pool B based on their criteria. And so validators want to get staked. They therefore want to be included in certain stake pools. And so the sentiment and the values of the staking community are really going to be reflected by, what various stake pool criteria are, and their decisions.
Yeah, I definitely understand that from a foundation delegation point of view. I guess my biggest issue is what's preventing, these big whales that are, using private validators, for themselves. For example, like let's just take, one of the biggest NFT communities, for example, and I'm not going to name drop anything, but like if one person says, hey, I want you guys all to go take your stake from wherever you're staking and stake it in our validator, most of these people are going to blindly listen. And if that community validator is ran by said company who is managing other different validators because they're running like an AWS or infrastructure as a service type program, I guess what's stopping them from obtaining an issue of having some sort of majority or growing towards a majority to be able to really have malicious intent if needed?
I don't know if I could really say there's anything that really would stop that other than there's a lot of SOL staked out there, right? And what people have found, I mean, I'll say rightly or wrongly, is that a lot of stake is rather sticky, right? Some holders, like, as we've seen recently, like with a more prominent validator that actually shut down operations, and like a lot of delegators, just weren't paying attention and like still haven't moved their stake off of a dead node. So that sucks to see that people aren't, I'll say, paying attention. But it also means that it's would be incredibly difficult to see like a single organization amassing like super minority or super majority status of stake.
Yeah, I just wanted to raise the concern.
Mhm.
I don't think there's anything actionable we can do right now. I just kind of wanted to make it, aware that there are some companies that are starting to gain a lot more traction that is
Right.
going to be a bit concerning coming down the line. But I do think that potentially on your guys' end, I think 10% is definitely way too low, or high. I mean,
Mhm.
I mean, in my opinion, I think it should be closer to like 5 or 4%. But I mean, I'd love to hear some other opinions on that.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's something we can look into pushing down. There's kind of some interesting like seniority considerations there for validators that have been running for a long time in certain locations. But it's certainly a solvable problem. Yeah. Yeah, Zan.
So I'm going to ask a question that you may not be able to answer or may not want to answer, but
Uh-huh.
I've been sort of involved in Solana as a validator since March 2021. And I always had this feeling that there's like, before I got involved, there was all kinds of like relationships that have been established at huge whales and everyone kind of knew each other. Is that not an accurate assessment? Is it really the case that these people are really truly anonymous and no one knows who has 15% of the stake in Dublin? Or is it the case that behind the scenes, there's like, kind of like a, not old boys club, but there's like, people that kind of know each other and may be able to communicate that I can't communicate with, but maybe people in Solana can. And maybe you can't answer that, but I'm just curious if you have any comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would actually observe is that, this issue of AWS concentration, like, you've called it out rightly so for a long time. The amount of stake in AWS has actually been going down over the last couple of weeks. Some of that I think from outside pressure, some of that from like people realizing that one is really friggin' expensive and not as good performing to run in the cloud as it is on bare metal nodes. But yeah, I mean, there were a lot of early holders and early validators that helped get the network online, right? And so things have certainly shifted over the last few years. There was once a small community that was Solana, and now it's everybody wants in, right? So
Yeah, I think if we can like benefit people like Zan that have been here from the start from a grandfathering perspective of any sort of data center saturation standpoint, I think that'd be beneficial compared to like new validators that are getting put in. Zan, I don't know where you're hosted, but
Well, I'm a data center where I'm the only one, so it wouldn't be an issue.
Okay.
But even still, I wouldn't object. I wouldn't require being grandfathered in. Whatever's best for the network, just do it.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there should be some sort of grandfathering situation, and for it's a big move or a big ask for someone to move their validator if they're in one of the first foundation contracted sites. So I think a grandfathering would definitely be beneficial. I'm in my own data center, so I'm not applicable to this, and I definitely started way later than a lot of you guys, but just a food for thought there.
Anything else anyone has questions about or wants to bring up? No. All right. Well, thanks everyone. And like I mentioned before, feel free to reach out if you've got thoughts or feedback about the delegation program, about this proposal for a one sol minimum, or about anything else that you want to talk to me about. Let me know. The link for a chat is in the Discord channel or my Discord handle as well. All right. Thanks, everyone.
thanks all.